Joel.
Hi, Tor. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Very good. Nice to meet you.
And you? Sorry, I was a bit late. My Zoom decided to update itself.
I think you were like 60 seconds late.
Oh, that's all right then.
Like,
Good.
in the world of rock and roll, that's actually on time, I think.
Okay, good stuff.
Where do we find you?
I am at my flat in Bristol.
Are you back in Bristol permanently now?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I've been there for about a year now. So yeah, enjoying it.
Because I'm actually in Montreal, but I'm from the UK.
Oh, cool.
I used to run a club night at Bristol Academy.
Oh, right. Well, you used to live in Bristol, or?
I didn't live there. I lived in Birmingham, but I used to go down to Bristol like almost every Friday to run this club night called Ramshackle. It went for a long time that night.
Cool. Nice. Do you miss it, or?
I do miss it. I miss things about the UK, like good pubs, obviously friends and family, and I kind of miss Bristol. Bristol's a cool city. There's a lot going on there. I had some good times there.
Yeah. Oh no, it's I like it here. I've been here for about a year. I mean, I tour a lot, so I'm away a lot, but I like coming home here, you know.
This must be an exciting time for you, but apart from it being the beginning of a brand new year, the first week of proper releases, and we get a new Billy Nomates album. The first music I think you've released apart from the singles when it wasn't a pandemic.
It's funny. This is the first time I've released, yeah, a body of work that's not in the pandemic. My whole existence professionally has been through pandemics. So yeah, I feel good about it. I'm quite anxious about it. I'm quite nervous to put it out into the world, but at the same time, the life cycle of a record, it's written a year ago, and then it's 6 months of press and single releases and planning. And so by the time it rolls around, you're a bit over it,
Yeah.
in all honesty. But you get to kind of ignite, the original feelings you had when you first made it. And that's a really nice thing.
So what did you learn from the first album that helped you with this album?
I think, that first album was just a real stab at music. I never considered myself a professional musician or songwriter. I was just somebody that dabbled enough with instruments to make songs and recordings. And so I think the first album just taught me to write and to just scratch and to just sketch, because that's now become my professional career. And at the time, I didn't know I was doing it in that capacity. But then when you get here, you realize that's all anyone's doing. You think that stuff is just flailing around the edges, but actually that's the work. That's like 80% of the work. So yeah, it taught me to just persevere, and sometimes you have to stay up all night making something, and that's just how it is. And it taught me some discipline in that respect.
You once said that the music business or the music world felt like a club that you'd never get into. Do you feel like you're in a club yet?
Nah. Nah, they'll never let me in. It's fine. I don't feel like I'm in a club yet. I always feel like the outsider. I always feel like the bit of the wild card. And I'm all right with that, yeah, I think, it's a funny place, the music industry. It's full of some really, really interesting people. And I think, we all kind of, I think, maybe feel like outsiders at times. And it's really nice that people know and like my music now. I think with my first album, nobody knew what I was doing. And then this one's rolled around, and there's still a lot of people just discovering it, and that's really cool. But I know that people will probably be able to access it, and that's really exciting for me, because you want people to you create music because you want people to hear it. So that's exciting.
And I know recently you were on Jools Holland. Now, like any British music fan, you must have grown up watching that show.
Absolutely, yeah. it's quite surreal that I've done it, to be honest. Like, that day went so quickly. I kind of just remember going in and being like, oh, we're doing Jools Holland. Okay, Jools Holland is done. Ah.
Who,
Like,
who were the other bands in the room with you?
I think my episode was with Hot Chip. We had Hot Chip. We had an artist called Abel Selassie, who was excellent. And Suede were on as well. And an artist called Debbie. And it was fun. It was just, it was a really fun after. It was just surreal. It was totally surreal. It's kind of like it didn't happen, but it did.
Well, I think once you're on Jools Holland, you're kind of in the club.
Do you think? Am I in the club?
Whether you like it or not.
Oh no. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll accept that.
Where did Cacti begin for you?
Cacti began about a year ago. I moved back to Bristol. I spent lockdown on the Isle of Wight in my dad's spare room, because like a lot of artists, we just weren't working, and it was like, what do we do, you know? And I just rent. So at age 30, I had to go home. I had this record deal and I had to go home, and I'd never lived at home. And I was like, what is going on? I thought my life was going well. So yes, I moved back here about a year ago. I got this flat and then started sketching here at home. And Invada Studios is based in Bristol also. So I had a little base there also. And so I was back and forth between home and the studio. And just sketched a lot. I wrote a lot of stuff went in the bin. In fact, I'd say like 3 or 4 things off this album have been fished out the bin by a co-producer, because I just wrote so much that I, in the end, sort of lost sight as to the whole. But I took a bit of time out from it also. There was talk of it coming out at the end of last year, or autumn of last year. And it didn't do that, because I kind of took about 2 months to just breathe with it and to just analyze that it was the right thing to do and that I was happy with it. And I'm so glad I did that, because it's a different record because of taking some time out. And yeah, it's hard to do that because part of you wants to just keep the momentum going and to just get things out as quickly as possible. But actually, it's not always the right thing. And it wasn't the right thing for Cacti. And yes, it's just a kind of document of real lived experiences, really. It's a bit more internal. It's a bit more personal than what previous Billy Nomates records. And it's kind of analyzing. It's analyzing some deep thoughts and emotions. And it's also about kind of surviving all of that. And it's a funny one. It's hard to kind of talk about Cacti. I kind of want it to do we're doing it now, but I kind of want it to do the talking, because it basically says all the things that I can't say day to day. And that's why it exists, but it's also going to be difficult in a press situation to analyze.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the running order of the album, because if it's important for you that people just sit and listen to the record and pay attention and get what they can from it.
Yeah.
At what point during the writing process do you start to think about how these songs sit next to each other in an album format? Towards
the end, it's not something, I know some people sort of build it as they go, but for me, it was kind of like I'd made all the songs, I'd shortlisted the songs, and then from there, I just lived with them. A few of us did, and some things really made sense one after the other as a story arc, and then some things were just real wild cards. And it was like, why on earth would that go there after that? That really throws that off course. But then I'd live with it, and then just decide that was the best thing for it. It's funny. It's like sometimes when I write lyrics, I sometimes think, oh, that's a placeholder. Like, it won't be that line, but it's just a placeholder. And then you come to re-record it and you go, oh well, that's just the line now, like we can't change it. So I just lived with that order for a bit and got so used to it that I was like, well, this is just it now, this is the album. So
I guess the fact that you do all of this on your own, like that made it something that you could do easily. Like I speak to a lot of artists that had to completely rethink things during the pandemic,
right.
or they just couldn't do what they wanted. But for you, was there a positive from the pandemic for you because of that?
I mean, it's funny, like, yes, in some respects it did work. And I have a real, I have a real guilt about having success in the pandemic because it's just such a terrible time for people. And to sort of have had success was strange for me. I still don't really, I have a bit of a dissociation with all of that first album because of it. And yeah, I chose to operate live as a solo artist because it just made it possible. It's something that could change in the future. I'm all for progressing and building and doing other things. I've never been, it's never been that black and white. But I just found that I could survive the last few years by operating as a solo artist. And in the end, you just kind of need to survive it. In order for people to hear your music. So, yeah, I have found some success in it, and but it's multi-layered. That's a strange thing to have found, and I hope that it just balances out now. Like now we're sort of out of that. It would be really nice to sort of have a year of, I don't know, that the guilt subsiding slightly. And to be able to just navigate it in a sort of normal world. I don't know. I mean, it will never be normal, will it? But
Yeah. But I don't think you should feel guilty about it. Everybody coped with that situation in different ways.
sure.
Everybody had hard times, which I'm sure you did as well. But you found something to focus on that's become something that's taking your life forward, and others are getting enjoyment out of that as well. So it's all ended up in a good space, hopefully.
So yeah, I mean, the end game is fine. It's just, but it's just a weird thing because it's a hard thing to talk about those years. It's still really, it's still an odd. I think whenever we go back, we go, oh, that's like 2 years ago, and I don't know if that feels like a long time or no time at all. Like we really fell in a time warp, and so yeah, it's just nice to move on with a kind of clean slate ahead of who knows what 2023 will bring, whether it'll be good or bad. But the record is here and it's done. So
it's done.
Yeah.
Well, probably 2023 is going to be good and bad. So let's just embrace the good while we've got it.
Isn't it true? Yeah.
So working on your own, what's your process to get to a final song?
I demo things pretty quickly. So melody and lyrics tend to inform each other. So my demos are kind of everything at once. And they're a bit too intense sometimes because it's every part and it's every thought and it's every emotion. And they tend to reel off quite intensely. But from there, it tends to be, a demo doesn't change all that much. What happens is that I get into a room with sometimes a co-producer. I work with a guy called James Travascus a bit. Sometimes I work with Jeff Barrow. And what we tend to do is rather than add to it or build on it, we just take things out. We just take things away and we just start unpacking it basically, because it's normally all there. I think demos, I'm normally about 85% done. And then it's just a case of unpacking. So yeah, writing is just an intense thing. I can normally stay up. If I start at like 3 PM, by 3 AM, I'm normally about there. And then if I wake up sort of the next day and I quite like it, it's like, okay, that's done.
I think you once said that there's already enough music in the world. So with that in mind, what you're doing bring to the musical landscape that you don't think would be there without you?
I don't know, I think I said that quite selfishly, but I think what I mean by it, or meant by it, was just that I just really hope that my music always says something. I just hope that people really feel something sincere about it. I think there's a lot of insincere music that's just made. It's just made because someone could make it, And I really like soulful things that just deal with uneasiness, or deal with, just look at things that maybe daytime radio can't look at. And to be able to make that crossover and to make daytime radio with some of those things blows my mind, because there's a part of me that's always like, I can't believe I've gotten away with that. I can't believe I'm saying these things in the middle of the day on international radio. That's insane. Yeah. And I just, as long as it stays real and soulful, then I think that's what I meant by it, is that it's my hope, really, for me, that I can keep a piece of that.
Well, I haven't even mentioned yet that I love what you're doing. I love the new album. And part of what I love about it is, like, you're saying that you get onto daytime radio, but that's partly because of the songwriting and the melodies, not necessarily like the lyrical content. It's the hook and all that kind of stuff, which you're really good at doing that, but also in like adding in these really important lyrics that make people think, hopefully, if they actually stop to listen to them. So I think there's definitely a place for your music in this world full of music. So
fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a real treat talking to you.
You're welcome.
And I hope you make it over to Montreal at some point.
Love to, yeah.
It'd be great to see you doing your thing in a room. But I just wish you all the best with it, and have a great 2023.
Thank you very much. Have a brilliant day.